this tutorial, you will learn how to conduct a one-sample t-test by hand. Our research question asks if college students get less sleep on average than adults, who get an average of 7.25 hours of sleep. We took a sample of 123 college students and found their average sleep to be 6.8 hours with a standard deviation of 1.25 hours. So we ask, are college students getting less sleep on average than the average adult? In order to start this, we must start by writing our null and alternate hypothesis. Our alternate hypothesis is the one that matches our research question. In this case, the alternate hypothesis is that our college average is getting less than 7.25 hours of sleep. So we want to know, is the population average for college students less than 7.25 hours? Our null hypothesis is that they are getting the same amount of sleep. So mu equals 7.25 hours. Our t-statistic calculation is t equals x bar minus mu over s divided by the square root of n. Filling this in, x bar is our sample mean, here 6.8. Mu is the null hypothesized value, or the value from our null hypothesis, which is 7.25 hours. S is our standard deviation of 1.25 hours. And our n is our sample size, which is 123. Typing this into your calculator, we get that our t-statistic is negative 3.99. Now we have to determine what that value tells us about our population. To determine what our t-statistic tells us about the population, we will use the t-distribution table. This is what my table looks like, but there are many versions of this table. First, we have to determine which type of test we are doing, and this depends on what our alternate hypothesis was. Since our alternate hypothesis was mu is less than 7.25, this means we were doing a left-tailed test. That is because we are expecting a value that was less than what we had. Doing a left-tailed test means that we are doing a one-tailed test, and on my chart that means we will look in this middle row and match that with our appropriate alpha value. I'm going to run this test at an alpha value of 0.05. The next thing we need to know is our degrees of freedom. The degrees of freedom for a one-sample t-test are equal to n minus 1. In this case, our n is 123. So our degrees of freedom are 122. 122 degrees of freedom are not on our table, so the closest value we can get is 100. Looking at the table, we will match that 100 with our 0.05 alpha level, and we get a t critical of negative 1.66. It's a negative because we're doing that left-tailed test. You can see here that on the table it indicates that it should have been a negative t-statistic. Drawing this out for our test, we see that our critical region falls to the left of negative 1.66. We call this also our rejection region. Our t-statistic of negative 3.99 falls inside of this rejection region. So we conclude that we can reject the null, and therefore we determine that college students do get less sleep than the average adult.